Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Pops.
And welcome back for our college football episode going into college football week 13 of the season. So I was planning before Pop showed up this week. If we hadn't been able to go, I was going to do it solo. And here's how I was going to open up this episode. But now that Pops is here, I'll be able to bounce this off of him. So I'm not going to get into why Notre Dame is ranked above Alabama, and I'll get into that here in a minute. But what I do want to get into is what the committee chair said. So what he talks about is he goes, you can't compare them two head to head because they don't have a head to head game against one another or against a common opponent. So they don't have that. So he goes, they both have 2 losses, but what he pointed to he's like, well, Alabama doesn't rush the ball good. So I want that to be in the forefront of this argument, and I'll cut right to now where I'm going at. He goes, and what I mean by that is I want you to think about the first thing he said. They have the same record, but they don't have a common opponent, so thus we're now going into this eyeball test. Here is the head of the committee, Yurachek, who, by the way, this has always been my major stinging point with the CFP committee. Yurachek is the sitting athletic director of Arkansas, who, by the way, is searching for a head coach. So do you really think that this guy is the guy that's watching all these games trying to make an unbiased opinion every week? Or do you think he has all these, not only is he athletic director, he's now searching for a new head football coach for his program, and you think he's like paying attention to all these games and watching? It's why the committee is an absolute joke. It's a conspiracy theory. It's behind closed doors. That's why you don't have a vote. They're putting in who makes the most money or their biases, all the things that Maul talks about. Yes, but this isn't 13 people sitting down really coming up with logical things. Why do I say that? So here is the example of 2 teams, Notre Dame, Miami. He goes, when you look at Notre Dame, Miami, we really compare the losses of those 2 teams. And I sort of sit back and I go, I want you to think about that. For Notre Dame, Alabama, they have the same record, of which Notre Dame and Miami have the same record, but he goes, Notre Dame, Alabama don't have a common opponent. Notre Dame, Miami don't have a common opponent. They've actually played one another. One of the losses that Notre Dame has had is to Miami.
Yes.
So me and you and Maul could go ham on the CFP committee the whole time. This is what my question for you to be, and I know that this is probably going to take a little bit of thought. May have a pause here, so don't fear that the audio's gone away. My question for you is this. You're on the committee. At what point does a head-to-head win be negated for a team that you're comparing 2 teams to try to decide? Let's say that both of them are we're not talking about conference champs because I get Miami would automatically get in. Notre Dame's not in it. I'm saying that both of these are fighting for that last seed, in the playoff. But Miami's got the win over Notre Dame. What point does that win not count in your mind? And I know that's a loaded question of loaded questions because there's a lot of it depends.
Oh, for sure. But the point at which that doesn't matter, in my opinion, would be if they had a losing record. But the thing about it is they're never going to have a losing record to be in consideration for the CFP. So in my case, I don't see a scenario where that happens. My mind initially when you were talking about, when he's like, oh, well, Alabama doesn't have a good run game, that told me all that I needed to know where he does his research. Because if you remember College Game Day last week when they were talking about the Alabama-Oklahoma game, what was Nick Saban talking about the whole entire time? Alabama's inability to run the ball. So it's like, all right, well, this is the guy just had ESPN on the background while he's sitting here doing all this, making these types of comments. And that was the first thing that came to his mind of the delineation of why or how he's going to choose these teams and why a team's going to be ranked above another. And I don't think we're ever going to get a logical explanation of why they choose to do things the way that they do them.
There is no rhyme or reason. The thing about the Bama game, this is not. I just want to point this out. Bama had over 400 yards of offense to Oklahoma, putting up the fewest offensive yards to win a top 10 matchup since 2000 when they did it in 2000. Oklahoma did. Oklahoma had just, I think it was like 204 yards. What won them the game, Oklahoma, is 3 turnovers. 2 of, when you think about their turnovers, one's pick 6,
Yep.
and the other 2 occurred in Alabama territory that immediately led to 2 field goals. Bama was still, think about how poorly Bama played in the game. You have 3 turnovers, 1 for a pick 6, and you still
Almost won the game.
almost win the game. You only lose by 2. This wasn't this like, man, Oklahoma just came in there and smacked them. It was a close game throughout. And that's, for me, I said it last week with Maul, and I'll say it to you, the committee for sure, we are no longer judging teams by their wins, we're judging them by their losses.
Yep.
Which is sort of hysterical because last year we overlooked Notre Dame's, loss to Northern Illinois.
Yes.
Like, so this is a scenario that I see developing, and this is the reason I'm not a fan of the rankings, and it has nothing to do with Alabama. It has a lot to do with Miami, a little bit with Alabama from this standpoint. And it has everything to do with Notre Dame and where they're ranked right now. Both of these teams are highly likely, in my opinion. Bama has the much stronger test because they're going to have to go to Jordan O'Hare and play Auburn, which is just, if hell exists on earth, it's at that stadium at night because the devil's magic is at work. I've watched way too many games that have kept me up and just been awful to watch as a Bama fan because something happens at Jordan O'Hare at night. It is a very, very difficult place to play regardless of how good your team is at night. But I want you to think about this. Let's say both teams win out. If Bama wins out, what happens? Bama goes to the SEC championship. What happens with Notre Dame?
They don't.
They don't go to a championship. So let's think about this. So now Bama, let's say that A&M wins out. They have to play A&M. If they lose, who's going to be in?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's going to be in. It's like, so you're going to punish a team. So what would almost work out best for Bama is this, and this is like crazy what I'm about to say. There is because they own the tiebreaker over Georgia. However, Ole Miss only has 1 loss. If Ole Miss wins out, then Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss are tied in the SEC lead. And what determines it is Ole Miss is out in every scenario if they all win out for the rest of the season in terms of SEC play. Georgia has already done that because the only team Georgia has yet to play outside of some scrub that they're playing this week is
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, is Georgia Tech. In Georgia, sorry, scrub. What I was talking about was Charlotte scrub. Which Bama's playing Eastern Illinois. It's the same level of scrub. It's a bad week for college football and why we're starting off the episode like this. So now you're in this position where it's like, so what if you're Bama, you almost want Georgia for this scenario of teams that have, like Kentucky has to beat Vanderbilt, a couple other games have to happen if both teams, if Ole Miss, Georgia, and Alabama win out for the rest of the season in SEC play, that you sort of want the odds to somehow stack to where Bama beats Auburn but still somehow doesn't go to the SEC championship and it's Georgia to go, because at that point Bama's sort of like, well, we can't catch another loss. Mm-hmm. We're probably in.
Yep.
That's the best case scenario because the way it's built, and this is the thing that drives me crazy with Notre Dame, is if Notre Dame just wins out, there is no repercussions for not playing in a conference game. In fact, they're almost rewarded for not playing. And that, to me, is the antithesis of why we had these buys last year, was to punish Notre Dame for not playing in conference championship. It was like, you're not going to get a bye because you're not a conference champion. Well, we did away with that this year, and now I think it's biting us in the butt because now without that bye, you're sort of sitting back and it's like, you sort of look at, someone here is going to win a conference championship and not get a bye this year. Like Big Ten and SEC, especially, I would argue the crazy thing is it could easily be Bama. Bama could beat A&M in the conference. Like, sort of think about it. Like, regardless of who wins, Indiana or Ohio State, that's going to be your number one seed. Let's say Bama beats Texas A&M. Do they move into the top 4? Do you leave Georgia, who's already ranked above them, in there? Like, they beat Georgia Tech. Does now the head-to-head matter? Does Bama go somehow from 10 all the way to jumping Georgia again?
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the rest of the rankings. Texas A&M, I argue, if they win out, they're going to get a bye.
For sure.
They're a great team. What about Ole Miss? Ole Miss has one loss to Georgia. They beat Oklahoma. Does Bama, if they beat Texas A&M, do they jump Ole Miss in the rankings? Like, this is the problem with the playoff, is when you allow this, like, really unsubjugated rules in, like, how they rank teams to occur, you present problems, which I get. We have to get to this point in the playoff or in the conference championships that we have these matchups line up that you go, so what happens? Either Bama wins the SEC championship and still possibly doesn't get a bye, of which now you sort of think about, well, why did you get a bye? Well, you played an extra game against, in a championship game. To now, if they don't get the bye, it's like, not only do you have to play an extra game in the SEC championship, now you got to play an extra game
in the CFP.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Notre Dame could easily, I don't think they're going to jump high enough to get a bye, but there is a possibility that they could, depending on the rest of the season works out. So it's like, you really get 2 weeks off. That to me is heresy. Like, it should not happen. But we won't call Notre Dame out for not being in a conference, as a CFP committee. It drives, and as a media in general, like, the media should be running this story more often of, like, is it fair that Notre Dame can even get a bye if they don't play in a conference championship? To me, the answer is no. Absolutely not. So I'll, taking a look at this, we'll go through a few of the big week games, but more talk about the rankings. So any chance that Oklahoma loses to Missouri this week?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously the turnovers helped. The defense came up big for them against Alabama, but again, Missouri, even though they're ranked, they're just not up to the caliber of a team that, the rest of the top dogs in the SEC are.
Any chance Miami loses to Virginia Tech?
Watch out.
Okay.
That's one of those things, like, you don't know which Carson Beck's going to show up. And, we go back, like, Louisville, eventually their win against Miami bumped them up into the top 25, and I think, did they get bounced or are they at the bottom?
They bounced out.
Yeah, so they got bounced out. But, they were there, but then Virginia Tech was as well. Obviously, they lost as well. Was it to Cal? And the point is that Virginia Tech has shown that they've deserved the ranking, and we've also seen, Miami, they've lost to Louisville, they lost to SMU in overtime. Like, this could be one of those games, again, where if Carson Beck is not on his P's and Q's, like, that it could be an upset for him, and they're playing at Virginia Tech.
I think you're thinking about Virginia in terms of the ranking.
Is that okay?
Yeah, Virginia's playing better.
Sorry.
Virginia Tech's 3-7.
Okay.
The thing I will give you about Virginia Tech, and this is, just hear me out on this. James Franklin just got announced as new head coach. For me, this is sort of like, I got to show coach that
I can play.
Yeah. Like, I think it's a dangerous Virginia Tech team just from the standpoint of, hey, we have a head coach. I am playing for this guy. Like, he's watching. He's going to be there. I'm sure he will be. Like, James is that type. He'll probably be on this. If they would allow him to coach, he'd probably coach this weekend. But he'll probably be there trying to help out the guys in whatever way he can as the Virginia Tech head coach. Do I think that Virginia Tech pulls it off? No. I think that Virginia Tech has a lot of holes. Like, they're not a great football team. I think Miami has their backs pinned against the wall. Miami knows you want any chance,
loss, they're done.
Yeah. So I think them being ranked below Notre Dame probably can light a fire that just says, look, no one respects you. I get it. You got 2 losses. You control your destiny.
Yeah.
Do you want to play Georgia Tech? Do you want to get to an ACC championship, you control the cards. Go out and win. Do the things that you need to do.
I guess I should just retract. Like, apologies for getting the Virginia Tech messed up. But again, we've seen Miami lose games that they had no business losing.
Yeah. I mean, Miami has lost bad games. Now, from a standpoint of the standings, just to talk about it with the ACC as I get it up, from the ACC, so in conference play, you still have 4 teams that only have one conference loss. Miami has 2 because Miami lost to Louisville and Virginia. So right now you have Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, and SMU, all of which who can still control. Like, if all of those teams win, which when you sort of sit back and you look at, well, who do they got to play? This Georgia Tech's got to play Pitt. So someone's catching an L. Someone's getting bounced, most likely, or someone is getting bounced from the ACC championship. Someone's probably putting themselves on the driver's seat from that standpoint, Pitt, Georgia Tech. Then from the rest of conference play, when you look at the ACC, is you've got 2 other teams, Virginia and SMU. So from those 2 teams that are going forward, and just to pull up their schedule, that way I'm not just speaking pure heresy, sitting back. This week, Louisville goes to SMU. So, yet again, a huge game for SMU. And then the other team, Virginia, does not play this week. So, they are going to finish the season, Virginia, next week on the week 14. And Virginia ends up playing, as I pull it up, Virginia's got Virginia Tech. So, and what's crazy is next week, me and my dad, we talked about the NFL episode, are going to Pittsburgh to watch the Bills play the Steelers. Miami goes to Pittsburgh that Saturday. So I'm hoping that they move the game to an evening game, because if they do, I want to try to take my dad to the Miami Pitt game. But if my dad doesn't fly in until like noon. So if it's a noon game, we're just going to, go sit and watch it somewhere in Pittsburgh. But I'm hoping it's an evening game, because if it is, we're going to go to the game. But everything's up. Georgia Tech, if they win this week, their next game's against Georgia. So they're in. They beat Pitt, they're in. Virginia got to beat Virginia Tech, to which then they still have 2 losses. They're still tied with I don't think Miami can get in. So I think it's really going to come down to SMU sitting there in the driver's seat
against Louisville.
Possibly, yeah. And they just played this week. SMU goes to Cal, which is a difficult team to play. Like, SMU still has their strings cut out for them. But what's crazy enough is, I think in that scenario, if Miami doesn't get in, do you think Miami gets left out?
I can see it.
Here's the even better. Let's say Miami wins out, but doesn't play in the ACC championship. Let's say Bama makes it to the SEC championship, but loses to Texas A&M. Do they still leave Miami out? If it came down to Bama-Miami, what do you think the committee does?
But Miami went to the ACC championship? No.
Miami doesn't play in the ACC championship because Georgia Tech and, like, say, SMU go, and one of those teams is representing the ACC. Bama plays in the SEC championship, but they lose the SEC championship.
I don't see how, because this would be one of those things where it's like, okay, so now the championship games matter. And again, like you were talking about, you're going to penalize the team that made it to the SEC championship. Like, I think that would blow up the CFP if they left out Bama for losing a game that technically the only positive is that you're guaranteed in the CFP, if you got, 2 losses. But
if you had not played in the SEC championship and Georgia had made it because of, like, strength of schedule, you would have been in. Correct. But by playing it and losing it, you're now out.
Yeah, you're punished.
Yeah. If that happens, 100%, like, people lose their absolute minds, which if I was a Miami fan, I'd be losing my mind too. It's like, hey, we beat Florida State, the team that you lost to.
Yes. Now,
what would be funny is as they criticize Bama's rushing game, is if they said the reason we left Miami out is because Carson Beck sucks. That would have been the better. I would be tickled just to watch Miami fans try to find where the CFP meets and burn it down. Be all for that. But from that standpoint, I love talking these scenarios as we get towards the end because it highlights how dumb the CFP committee is with their rankings, and it really, I think it brings a lot of like just logical conversation from us and like from other football fans of like, look, these are real scenarios, and based upon how you've illustrated how you rank teams so far, it's like someone's going to get and this is, I've been saying it for a while, like conference championship games are going away because in a scenario like that, if you're the team that loses and now you get left out, you're like, why did we play this game? It hurt our conference to play this stupid game because without it, we would have been in. Notre Dame gets in every year without a conference championship. Why are we playing it? And just say, enough. We're not doing it anymore. If Notre Dame's not going to do it, we don't do it. And then you force, the committee to go, no, you're not going to get to see two teams that didn't play one another. Like, let's say that Texas A&M loses to Texas, and it's like a three-way tie between Georgia, Ole Miss, and like Georgia or Ole Miss and Bama haven't even played. It's like, so what are you going to do? Like, you got to put them both in now, which I think is what the real reason why the conference championship goes away is you sit back and you go, no, you're going to put all of us in because all these teams, the conference is so big, which Malls argued about, that now not everyone plays one another. Speaking of which, just on a side note for A&M, this is setting up, in my opinion, for A&M to get shellacked the first playoff game they play. Here's why, okay? Just follow me on this, and then it will make so much more sense. When we go to the standings for the SEC, can you pull up Texas A&M's schedule? And I'm going to prove this point real quick.
Maybe my phone starts working.
Yeah, Pops is loading it.
All right. Here we go. I'm up.
Okay. They have 7 wins in conference. Can you name them?
I got Auburn.
Okay, Auburn is tied for third from the bottom. They are 1-6 in the conference.
I'm guessing last Mississippi State.
Mississippi State is also tied for third in the bottom. They're also 1-6.
Florida.
Florida is tied for fourth from the bottom. They're 2-5.
Arkansas.
Arkansas is dead last. They're 0-6.
LSU.
LSU is right now tied for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth lowest in the conference. They're 3-4.
Missouri.
Missouri is at 3-3. So they are sitting right now from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8.
And then South Carolina.
And South Carolina is second from the bottom with 1-7. A&M has not beat an SEC team that has a winning record in conference.
Yep.
What I'm about to say, I will also throw Bama under the bus as well. So Toof, one of the guys we flew with in the Air Force, during the South, he was like, man, South Carolina, that's a big win. And I go, you know what's, I think we're going to talk about the comeback, and that's all we've heard about. But the thing that I would reference more to people is what you saw in the first half is something that team's clearly capable of being.
Mm-hmm.
They are capable of looking like that in a game, much like Bama was capable of looking like against Florida State. Like, that team's out there. This bad team is there. When does it show up? We saw Texas A&M only beat Arkansas by a few points, like 46-44. I think the score was. Arkansas hasn't won a game in conference. Like,
same with Auburn.
Same. Well, Auburn's won one game in conference, but
one possession game.
One possession game. Like, Texas A&M hasn't been killing it. I'll give Ohio State their credit. They've been murdering other Big Ten opponents, but it's like Texas A&M hasn't done that, and they've been doing it with subpar SEC teams, like really bad SEC teams. I just have this sneaky suspicion that they're going to get into the playoffs and get exposed the first time they play.
You know who the best team in Texas is right now?
Texas?
Tech.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. Texas Tech is just – I love what they did with their linebacker.
Yes. Give him the Heisman.
Give him the Heisman.
Tomorrow.
Yes. And honestly, since you brought it up, why not? Who's better?
Yes.
Right now?
Yeah. The guy's playing out of his mind.
Out of his mind.
Yeah.
It is high time that a defensive guy not just be nominated, but win the Heisman. 100%. If I'm Texas Tech, keep giving pad his stats offensively, because that's what it's going to take. Because at the end of the day, what are you going to tell me? That you're going to tell me Indiana's quarterback? Like, don't get me wrong, tremendous year. Like, I get it. Has played exceptionally well. He's going to win the award. But from a standpoint of, like, is he having Joe Burrow type of season?
No.
No, he's not. Like, Indiana's played, they're a really good football team. What he's doing at the position of line, like, he's playing phenomenal. He's playing phenomenal. Yes, 100% of the vote. Sorry, I thought you were talking SEC teams, so that's why I said Texas. I just thought that's where you're going. But
no,
100% right.
We'll get to that.
So, speaking of a bigger game, because I'm sure when I said there was not a lot of big games, if Maul listens to this, he's going to be like, you're dead wrong on that. USC goes to Oregon. This determines the playoffs for USC. My question for you is, does it determine the playoffs for Oregon?
I mean, they'd be a 2-loss team, right? Because they've only lost to Indiana. So I would argue no, just based on how we see the CFP do things. Like, it's a number, I think USC's number 15 right now, so, like, it's another top 25 loss. So then we could go back and we can argue is like, well, at the time, Miami lost to unranked Louisville, and then they lost to an unranked SMU. It's like, well, technically, Oregon's losses are better than that, if that's one of the delineators. And I personally don't think that if USC is able to pull the upset this weekend, that they would get booted from the playoffs.
This is I keep going back to Bama in this argument, because Bama would have 3 losses if they got to the SEC championship and then lost to A&M, of which that would also destroy the argument I just made of A&M only playing bottom tier teams from the SEC. Whoever they play, that's probably where they're going to catch their loss. Mm-hmm. Is if they play like they've played against some of these bottom tier teams in the SEC championship, Texas A&M is going to lose. Like, it's that stage is set. The reason I bring up Oregon if they don't beat USC is now you sit back and I go, okay, let's say Bama makes it and loses. Now they have 3 losses. Is Oregon automatically in even though they didn't play? Because when you start comparing wins, where's Oregon's win? Yeah. So Oregon played Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State, Penn State, lose to Indiana, beat Rutgers, beat Wisconsin. Is their best win Iowa? It is right now. Then versus Minnesota, USC, and Washington the end of the year. You can't, if I hear anyone talk about how they beat Washington, you can kick rocks. Washington lost to Wisconsin, of which Bama has the win against Wisconsin.
Yes.
Like, so there is some interconference play. Like, we forget about that win now, which is hilarious because it is a Big Ten to SEC comparison. But I sort of argue that this is sort of must win for both teams.
100%.
Like, Oregon needs this win bad because outside of the win against Iowa, which they had to drive down and get a last-second field, they don't have a win.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a win. Like, if anything, you're just saying, well, they only lost to Indiana by 10. Yeah, but it was at home. Like, and honestly, Indiana controlled the game throughout. Like, it wasn't this Bama, Oklahoma back and forth, you were in the game type of thing. No, Indiana controlled the game throughout.
Well, and it makes the Penn State win look even worse, just because of what they've become. But also, Oregon was controlling that game. They were up by 2 possessions and allowed Penn State to come back within striking distance.
So, my question for you, does USC win the game?
Man.
What do you think Maul says? I guess we can answer for him first, then we can answer first.
Well, and that's where I was going to go. Because, like, the only thing we talk about is the defense. How much of a liability it is week in and week out. Like, you just don't know which defense you're going to get. Like, we're going to get the defense against Northwestern where they only get 10 points, or, is it going to be a shootout the entire game? And, like, that's the one thing that concerns me with giving USC the win. Because that offense, Maava and Lemon, like, dude, that's a connection that's unreal. Like, that offense is there. Lincoln Riley's got that part dialed in. It's just like on the defensive side of the ball, what are we going to get? But I can also switch it to the other side. It's like this offense with Dante Moore, like when we first started the season, we're like, all right, Oregon, yes, they were playing cupcake teams, but they're putting up 70 points a game. You still got to have a good offense to be able to put up those types of numbers against the cupcake teams. But it's like over the weeks, man, they've almost been a liability. If they found a way, and this is where Iowa, because Iowa always has a good defense, they were able to rattle Dante Moore. And I just don't think USC is going to have that ability to do that.
Can they outscore you?
I think USC can outscore Oregon 100%.
Do you think, on a side note, do you think Oregon or Notre Dame has a better defense?
Just based on who they've played, I would probably say Oregon.
Wow. I probably would have said I would have been on Notre Dame's side from a defensive standpoint. I think that Oregon hasn't played a super offensive team yet outside of Indiana. And Indiana really, I don't think Indiana has the passing dynamics of like a USC. I mean, USC put up 24 points on Notre Dame. The offense didn't look great. Notre Dame's defense still gave up points.
Yeah.
I look at the last few weeks for USC. This is the only thing that worries me for USC's offense going against Oregon's defense, of which I think Oregon's defense it's very comparable to Notre Dame's. Like, it's not Notre Dame it's a close razor thin margin in my mind. USC, their last 3 wins since the Notre Dame loss: 21-17 against Nebraska, 38-17 against Northwestern, which was the bigger score, but then against Iowa it was 26-21. Mm-hmm. Like, so yeah, they put up more points against Iowa than Oregon did, which is great for USC. I just remember week 1, Maul was like, any of you other jokers put up 73 points? I get it was against Missouri State, but I sort of sit back and I go, what can we see a Lincoln Riley offense? If we can see them put up some points, I think if they can just get into the 30s, like if they can get into the 30s, they win the game. I'm with you. I don't see Oregon's offense putting up 30 points. So thus for USC, if you can score, you're going to win this game.
You know who's got a better defense?
No.
Oregon.
I'll tip my hat to you.
No, and that was just one of those things. Like, just I
was looking at statistics, just so you don't know. He's showing me his phone. He wasn't just saying it's better. Go ahead.
I mean, this is purely just, plays versus yards put up, how many touchdowns they've let up in yards per game. But, I mean, Oregon's defense only giving up 235 a game, in the 10 games they played this year. Ohio State's got the top defense in the nation, which it was kind of surprising because they brought up a stat the other day during the Texas Tech game where Texas Tech was ranked in the top 10 for every statistical category. But looking at this NCAA statistic, they've got the number 8 defense, but Notre Dame was all the way down at 29. So,
wow. Maul, I hope you're listening. Maul, every time Maul lays a parlay, one team doesn't hit. Like, it's historic that Maul, anytime he lays a 4 or 5 team parlay, just one team screws it. And last week he picked Bama on the money line, of which I literally told him, please do not ever pick Bama again. Like, stop doing that. And they lose. So you know what I'm going to do this week? I'm going to pick USC to win. There's your voodoo, Maul. I'm going to pick them to win. I don't have any money on it, but that way if it happens, it happens. And if not, you can blame me. I blame you for us losing Oklahoma. A team that's next game up, I'm just going to ask. It's a close, little bit of it's an 8.5 point spread. But here's a team that I feel like at the few weeks ago we were talking about, and now you haven't heard anything about.
Fell off the cliff.
Well, they're still 8-2. They still only have 2 losses.
Correct.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Playing against Kentucky. Now, if they beat Kentucky, where Vanderbilt has a chance to improve the resume even more is the following week they play Tennessee. So they have the ability to still have some meaningful games for Vanderbilt. They're not going to go to an SEC championship, but yet again, it's this. These are the teams that at the end of the year, when you're talking about a Miami who doesn't go to an ACC championship, where you can sit back and go, oh, well, this is the competition. Is that do you think if you had to put an 8-2 Miami or a 10-2 Miami
against
a
Vandy.
10-2 Vandy, who makes it in your mind?
In my mind, it'd be Vandy. Just based off of strength schedule. Going through the SEC, which again SEC bias, but like if you come down to the losses, if we were to rank the losses, Alabama and Texas. Okay, give me Team B, Louisville, SMU. Like
from that, if that's how the committee looked at it, then 100% I can see that argument. I always go to, well, who have they beat? And you sit back and you go, well, Vandy beat LSU. They beat Missouri. Yep. Both of two teams that
were ranked. Still ranked.
Well, Missouri is, but not LSU. One fired their head coach because, Brian Kelly sucks. And then Auburn, which was a closer game. I think their only good win is going to be Tennessee at the end of the year. And for Miami, that's the other thing for Miami. Like the Miami thing is we love to compare the losses, but it's like we also the committee refuses to bring up that Miami beat Notre Dame.
Yes.
Like they beat the team that they have the win, the head-to-head win. And it's a huge – if Notre Dame is sitting there in the playoff, you're going to tell me you're going to leave out Miami, who beat a playoff team. Meanwhile, Vandy has not beat a playoff team like that. These are the type of hairs that I'm talking about cutting, and I think it's one of these, it's a good, just hypothetical scenario, but it's a very plausible scenario that
Absolutely.
we can get into. You think Vandy comes away with a win?
Yes.
Okay. Your team. Is Texas eliminated from playoffs? Even if let's say they win out.
If they beat A&M, I think they would make it. But I think that would be about the only way that they do it. So, yes, if they win out, I could see the argument.
Ooh.
Because up to this point, you got A&M, who's number 3 in the nation, and they're probably going to hold that for the next week.
I keep going back to this Notre Dame. Let's make their argument. Let's say Texas wins out. They have three losses. Should they get in above Notre Dame, who only has 2?
Man, that's because then again you can argue, well, they lost to Miami and A&M.
But Texas has the common opponent that
they beat A&M.
They beat A&M.
Yeah.
And correct, is the game at Texas or is it at A&M?
It's in Austin. Last year was Kyle Field.
Okay. Both Texas and see, that would be even better because Notre Dame lost on its home field. Texas would win on its home field. I get it would help Texas a little bit more from a mind. If the committee actually watched games, then they'd know that Texas had to go to A&M last year or vice versa. But I think it's an interesting. They got to play Arkansas. Arkansas is the only team without an SEC victory. I don't see that changing this week. I got Texas in the game. However, what Texas team shows up? Talk about a tale of two teams. You have the team that shows up against Oklahoma. You get the team that shows up against Georgia that really looks bad. And then I'd argue that same team is really what showed up against Kentucky and Mississippi State. It just so happened that Mississippi State and Kentucky aren't as good as Oklahoma and Georgia, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, we were talking about it, when the game was happening. For me, it was there were a lot of drops early on in the game. But then for me, the pivotal moment was when Bama scored that touchdown, Georgia scored the touchdown, they went up, and then they kicked the onside kick. It was after that moment, the game was done. Texas had nothing to give after that moment. And, yes, it was a deflating, foolish mistake that the special teams made to give Georgia the ball back, but Georgia went down and scored. So, that was the twist of the game that I saw. The first half, I was actually pretty well impressed. I thought they were going to get blown out from the get-go.
Side note, do you think that if Sark is offered an NFL job, he leaves?
Yeah, I think that's why they're talking about it so much on the radio. Like,
Oh, they are. Pops lives in Texas, so he
Yeah.
gets to hear it way more than I do.
well, I saw it down here in Atlanta this morning on ESPN. His agent has released a statement, so that tells me there's enough grumblings that he's leaving.
Because I know Sark came out, he pulled his Nick Saban and said, "I'm not leaving."
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
and that's happening right now. That tells me that phone calls are coming in. So I think it's a matter of time, which Sark is playing the right card of like, no, I'm committed, I'm here, but again, that draws, a lot of question marks in the locker room that just adds another stressor to the season that they don't need to if they have any hope of making the CFP.
As I continue through, one of the teams that pops out, because I'll ask this question now, Michigan plays Maryland. Michigan's 13.5-point favorite. This is I've seen this scenario a few other times that, let's say Michigan wins out, because by winning out, that
They
means they
beat Ohio State.
beat Ohio State. Couldn't go to the Big Ten championship, but you beat Ohio State. Does beating Ohio State get you in?
I don't think so. Which is foolish. Like when you just sit back and you're like, well, they beat the top team in the country. Why are they not in? And there's like resumes. Well, by your resume, that school of thought Ohio State was number one. They beat them, so they showed that they're the best team in the nation on that day. Like, again, these hypotheticals are crazy, but I don't think they would get in personally.
I go back not just this year, but I go in previous years. Like, you think about when the committee put in Bama, who lost to Auburn, didn't play in the SEC championship, but they were like, well, we still think they're the better team, so that we're putting them in. And it's one of those ones as I look at now, you have an expanded playoff, and I'm with you. Like, you just beat we talk about it like, oh, well, that loss happened at the beginning of the season, and since, as they do in Notre Dame, since that point, they've looked really, really good. And it's like, yeah, Michigan lost too early. They lost one to Oklahoma, and I forget who the other team they lost to is, or USC.
USC.
Both of which are two right now competing for the playoff teams.
Yep.
If you beat Ohio State, I'm sort of sitting back and be like, so you're telling me we lose to Oklahoma and USC and we beat Ohio State and somehow we're not in? Like, are you kidding me? Like, Michigan fans would be upset sitting in the season 10-2, beating Ohio State yet again to be left out. Yeah, there'd be some. I love the hypotheticals because it brings up this, like, what matters. And it goes back to the question I asked you at the very beginning, because that's, to answer it for myself, it's one of those ones where I think that when you have equal records, the head-to-head has to matter.
Yes.
It's not that I don't care about the losses. It's just like every loss is different. Like, I totally get Bama lost to a very bad Florida State team. But if Georgia loses to Georgia Tech and we're both sitting there at 10-2, guess what? Bama beat Georgia.
Yep.
Bama should be ranked ahead of Georgia. You have two losses. The tiebreaker is you played one another.
100%.
Bama should be above Georgia. Don't care how the season finished. I get that Bama's got the more recent loss. You're tired, and that has to matter. Like, because that's, Maul said this, he said this every year, and I know that you've echoed it when you came on last year. It's like, at some point, the games that you play have to matter.
Yep.
Like, because if it's just this eyeball test, sort of like and that's my biggest emphasis with Bama of how the committee's doing this. So like, well, their rushing game didn't look great in their last two wins against South Carolina, LSU. And I'm like, is that what we're going with that now? That, oh, well, their rushing game doesn't look great. I'm not arguing that it doesn't look great. It looks awful. It's why I was the guy on the podcast last week that said Oklahoma was going to get the win. Like,
yeah.
I sit back and I just look at it and go, if you can't, on one hand, say something like that and then not be held accountable when you have these hypotheticals mature into actual real life scenarios that now you go, ooh, well, how are you going to reckon this one, CFP committee? Like, burn them at the stake. That's what I want. So then taking a look, Pitt, Georgia Tech. Pitt gets absolutely blasted by Notre Dame. But the coach had been on record saying,
this game doesn't matter.
Yeah. As long as we win the next two ACC games, we're in the ACC championship.
Terrible take.
Georgia Tech, it's a home game for Georgia Tech here in Atlanta. Georgia Tech's favorite -2.5. Does Georgia Tech come away with a win?
I really don't like. I don't like it. Like, you guys said it last week, and I'll continue to echo the same sentiment. It's like Georgia Tech is playing these games really close. Like, they have not been like that team that you sit back and you're just like, wow, like that they're upsetting the teams. They're upsetting the Clemsons of last year. But it's like, I don't know. For me, it's with Pitt having one loss in the ACC, like, everything's on the line for them this week. Obviously, Georgia Tech's in the same boat. Everything's on the line for them. Vegas calling it at 2.5 tells us all that we need to know, that it's going to be a close game, just by their peer experts out there. I give it to Georgia Tech just for being at home, but I would not be surprised if Pitt was able to get the win.
If that, regardless of where this game goes in terms of Pitt or Georgia Tech getting the dub, my ACC champion right now that I think is going to win it all, in terms of the ACC, SMU. You know what SMU's record is right now? 7-3. They have to, which this is like yet again one of these like hypotheticals that, let's say that they go and win the ACC championship.
Yeah,
they're in
for sure.
3-loss team. So now, because they won their conference championship, they're in at 3 losses. I think it opens the door for these other big scenarios that we're talking about. Like, hey, you got Michigan that only has 2 losses, but they beat Ohio State. Oh, what happens if Bama loses the SEC championship and, against Texas? They have 3 losses, but so does SMU.
Yep.
We just didn't. We couldn't help it that we had to go play, in a conference championship game. We had the same number of losses they do. It will be very, very interesting. But
without a doubt,
I don't see Georgia Tech winning the ACC.
Yeah.
I just look at the 14. Like, they're either, like you said, they're either going to catch the loss this weekend against Pitt, or they're going to catch it against Virginia or SMU. Like, I don't like how Georgia Tech's been playing.
And then add another one when they play Georgia.
Yeah, I mean,
like, overall,
which is, hold on, I'm about to. Excuse me. Sneezing thinking about that 6 overtime game last year against Georgia. It's just like one that I go, I think Georgia Tech's very capable of playing Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia whooped up on Texas, but at the same time, this is the Georgia team that lost to Bama, who doesn't have a rushing game, that should have lost to Ole Miss. I think that Georgia Tech, this is not the Kirby Smart defense. They had a good game against Texas because, in my opinion, Texas is not a good football team. Like, I know that it's not an attack on you. It's more just like, look at Texas overall this year. Like, it's the same team that we saw against Ohio State. Like, they have a good defense. Offense hasn't been there. The same team that struggled to score against Kentucky also had to come from 17 down against Mississippi State. Like, they're lucky to come away with a victory. Yeah. They also got blasted by Oklahoma, of who has a good defense. Not saying that Georgia Tech's got this great defense or anything, but from a standpoint of Georgia, this win is not this, like, it was a great win for SEC play to come out with a victory, but it's not this, like, statement game. Texas is not the team that the committee had them ranked 10th last week. My rear end. Like, they were not the 10th best team. Maybe if Ewers was still the quarterback, they the 10th best ranked team, but not with Manning. Manning's looked awful. So that's just, I totally agree with you from the onside, changed the momentum of the game, but from a standpoint of Texas hasn't lived up to that moment all year.
Yeah.
They beat Vanderbilt. That's their biggest win.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, in Oklahoma. But
even then, Mateer was hurt.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it was a different game. It was, if they played the same game now, who do you think would win?
Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not taking anything away from Texas. It's more just like, if we're going to do the committee thing of, like, evaluating teams on present day, then I'd argue that Oklahoma gets the victory this time around. Just me. Taking a look at the rest of the games going out, the only other one that I really see that I think has, it's a slept-on team, BYU. Like, yes, did they get throttled by Texas Tech?
100%.
100%. But they're sitting there 9-1. Like, if they're most likely going to play Texas Tech again,
Yep.
do both teams get in if BYU wins in the rematch?
I mean, because at that point, that'd be Tech's only loss.
Correct.
And so like now, yeah, because they'd be the Big 12 champion if that happened.
BYU would be in, but does
correct.
Texas Tech get in with one loss just to BYU?
I mean, you would have to.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Like, I'd hope in a world that we put both teams for the Big 12 champion. Like, we don't punish Texas Tech
For losing.
for having to play BYU again because they play in a conference championship game.
Exactly.
Like, I would put them in over Notre Dame. Who, like, that's the scenario. That's the scenario where I go, you got to leave Notre Dame out. Is you can't, in these games, you cannot be willing to take a team and punish them by reaching the conference championship.
For sure.
Period.
Yep.
Period. Like, if Georgia Tech and SMU both go with only one conference loss, and that's, like, you can't punish the other team, or Virginia, you can't punish them for losing the game. Sorry. You got to put them both in. That's my high horse. Ugh. That's week 13. I mean, week 14 is the big one. This one's sort of like a prelude going in. So hopefully you're able to make the episode and that we all are. So, but it's Thanksgiving, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult with recording. Ole Miss goes to Mississippi State for the Egg Bowl. Utah goes to Kansas. Georgia goes to Georgia Tech. Texas A&M goes to Texas. Alabama goes to Auburn. Texas Tech goes to West Virginia. Oregon, Washington. Miami, Pitt. UCLA, USC. Virginia Tech, Virginia. Ohio State, Michigan. LSU, Oklahoma. Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Notre Dame, Stanford. Like, Notre Dame should easily win that game. But all these games, like, it's for as terrible as this week's slate is, there's some good games out there. We hit on the ones that we thought were going to be better. Next week's, I mean, goes right in the conference championship. Load
100%.
it. Load it. Ready to go. Any thoughts on any of that?
No.
All right, well, that finishes up the college episode. We'll get this put out. Time to pull chalks. Thanks for Pops coming out. Getting to do the first episode with him inside the home-built studio. And we'll see you guys next week for see what's going to happen going into week 14. Time to pull chalks. We'll see you guys next time.